Everyone, my name is Catherine Desforges. I'm the director of the Independent Cinema Office, and I'd like to welcome you to this evening's event on the Cinema of Ideas. If you haven't been before, the COI is the ICO's virtual screen, a forum for collaboration, discussion, and film. This is a really special evening for us tonight because it's our last official COI event. We've had an amazing 2 years and we've loved watching the platform grow and develop, and this community, both national and international, engage with us. We started in May 2021 with a special preview of Ousmane Sembène's Fabulous Mandabi and a panel discussion. And in the past 2 years, we've commissioned films, worked with some brilliant collectives and curators, and supported 4 emerging new curators in developing their practice. COI came out of COVID, and it was a way of us connecting with our partner venues, their audiences, and the wider exhibition community across the world. A particularly warm welcome tonight to those partner cinemas and to any of our international viewers. I hope wherever you are that the time difference isn't too tiring. We've been funded by the British Film Institute for the last 2 years for this work, and for that we are immeasurably grateful. You can see many of our previous events on our YouTube channel. There are links on our Cinema of Ideas page, which is www.cinemaafideas.org.uk. The platform will continue in a different form, so if you have enjoyed any of our sessions, please join our mailing list and stay in touch with us so that we can let you know about future events. I just want to remind you that tonight's session is being live captioned. Thank you to Exalio, our captioner, and a recording of this event will be available on the Cinema of Ideas website to watch alongside the recordings of our previous discussions that I mentioned earlier. So back to this evening, and I am absolutely delighted to welcome Kim Yutani, Director of Programming at the Sundance Film Festival, in conversation with my friend and colleague, programmer and curator Selina Robertson. Selina project managed and curated the Cinema of Ideas in its first year for us and did an amazing job, so this feels like perfect synergy. Selina and Kim have been friends since meeting at BFI Flare in the early 2000s, and tonight they will explore their passions for cinema, film programming and audiences, as well as sharing some reflections on this post-pandemic moment for film festivals and film exhibition. There'll be an opportunity for you to ask questions at the end of the conversation, but you can also join in the chat before then if you like. For now, I'm going to leave you with Selina and Kim, and I will see you again at the end of this session.
Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you, Catherine. Hi, Selina.
Hi, Kim. How are you?
I'm doing well, and you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for, well, firstly, thank you, Catherine, for a really warm introduction. It's personally it's lovely for me to come back on the platform to do this conversation with Kim and to sort of close this kind of series of Cinema of Ideas. But Kim, I mean, it's like, yes, we've been friends for a very long time, and I was thinking about how I was going to sort of begin our conversation, because I guess our friendship is so based around talking about cinema and audiences and film programming and films and filmmakers, and it feels like we've been doing that for 20 years since we met. So it's just really nice that we can talk about it some more, but in a kind of more of a public kind of sphere, and kind of, I guess, sharing, because when we met, we were kind of young little whippersnappers, weren't we? And now, like 20 years later, we're in, different, spaces in our careers and doing different things. So I guess we've got a lot, we've got a lot under our belt. So it's just kind of nice that we can kind of reflect back to those beginning times and kind of take and assess where we are today as well in terms of film programming and audiences and cinema and film festivals and exhibition.
I agree. This is it's very special for me to have this conversation with you, because I think you were one of the first programmers that I became friends with. I remember you coming to Outfest in LA, yeah, where when I was first just starting as a volunteer programmer. And just our friendship over the years has meant a lot to me. Just the way it's grown, both professionally and personally, and the way that we always make time to see each other when we're when we're at other festivals, and we just have shared so much over the years.
Yeah,
So
no,
thank you for doing
absolutely.
this conversation with me.
Thank you. So I think I think in preparation for this event, just to let the viewers know, I asked Kim to trawl through some of her archive, some ephemera, to think about some sort of film programs that she'd done in the past, and maybe some people who were important to her, and kind of moments in her kind of programming career that were significant. There was a shift, or there was a kind of movement. So I think we're going to frame the discussion around a couple of some material that Kim sent us. So I think we'll probably just start kind of from the beginning, in 1993. Maybe Sammy, you can pull up this image for us, because when I asked him, to send me something from when she kind of first started programming, she sent me this very interesting flyer, I guess. It's for your. Is it true, Kim? This is the first program that you film program that you organized and presented. Is that right?
It is. It was a program of short films, and it was in conjunction with this zine convention that was happening in LA at the time. I don't know about you, but I spent a lot of time in the 90s looking at zines, really just being inspired by a kind of DIY nature of creating work. And I was volunteering for this organization, Film Forum, in LA, which was a nonprofit organization really that showcased experimental films. And this really amazing filmmaker, and she was also a curator, Lisa Mann. I've lost touch with her, but she recruited me to put this program together. And this is actually that's the cover of this little mini leaflet. So some of the films that were included in this program, one of them is called A Riot Girl Tells Her Own Story. This is 1993, made by Corin Tucker, from who at the time was in Heavens to Betsy, and now known for her work in Slater-Kinney. But she made this 6-minute, 16 millimeter film that I included in this program. And then Sarah Jacobson, the late Sarah Jacobson, had a short film called I Was a Teenage Serial Killer from 1992,
Oh, yeah.
which was also part of this. So that's just kind of the vibe of this program. And at this time, I didn't really know what I was doing. I just sort of knew that there were films that I think even Lisa suggested a lot of these films to me to include. But certainly this is a program that I kind of look back on with a fondness, and just seeing it as a real opportunity to even start a career as a curator or a programmer. But this was from 1993, and a lot happened in between then and when I started actually programming in earnest. After this, I went on to work with Greg Araki, and that had its own impact on me personally. I think we could probably take down this image of.
But just coming back to that first program, I mean, I know myself, when it's funny you say when you met me, I was one of the first film programmers you'd met. I think when we met, I mean, even though I was kind of co-programming Flare, I I sort of thought about myself as a programmer, but I didn't, because I felt I didn't really know that much. But I remember like one particular screening at Flare. It was I was showing a Barbara Hammer film, and I can't remember, I probably told you the story, and I was in the NFT2, which is one of the cinemas at the BFI, and we were showing this film of Barbara's called Resisting Paradise, and that was the moment in the Q&A with Barbara when I realized that I, as a person, I could think about being a film programmer as a career, because I could put my politics and the pleasures that I found in kind of presenting films to audiences, um, and myself, as as a queer person, as a feminist, it could all kind of come together, all my sort of passions and the things that are really, really important for me. And I could show films. I could show films to audience, and I could get people excited. We could discuss films. And that was, I remember so well that moment. And I'm just wondering, with the program you put together in '93, was there a moment during kind of organization or showing that program to audiences you were like, oh, this is something, there's something in this that is kind of, I want to do more? Or did that come later?
I think it came a little bit later. I mean, at this point, I was just sort of out of I went to UCLA. I was just out of school, really, and just didn't know what I was going to do, and didn't really have a sense of programming as a career until maybe I went to Sundance for the first time. And I think at this point I was just too bewildered um, and overwhelmed by this what I thought was a really incredible opportunity. And I had been volunteering for Film Forum, like, yeah, going to the PO box and pulling out the membership checks and stuff like that, just because I wanted to be around a film organization that cared about the work that I was interested in. So yeah, I think it was around the time when I met you, really, that I really I was pursuing a career in programming. I went to UCLA. I worked at UCLA for many years in the instructional media library and film and television archive, and that's a place where I really credit to being my film education. Like I didn't really study film in the way that a lot of other programmers have, and I feel like every programmer has their own kind of way into the job. A lot of people kind of fall into it. I think as soon as I realized that this was a job that I wanted to do, and that festivals were a place that I saw myself being a part of, that's when I sort of formally entered into into this program called Project Involve, where it was a mentorship program, and that was a huge step for me to having a career as a programmer.
So what can you tell us more about that? Was that when you first met Kirsten?
Yeah, Kirsten Schaefer was the director of programming of Outfest at the time.
Maybe we can have that slide, Sammy, so we can just have that's Kirsten on the right.
Yes. And Jenny Olson, legendary film archivist and filmmaker, on the left.
Amazing.
Yeah, and Kirsten became my mentor through this program called Project Involve, which was through Film Independent, which is in LA. And the opportunity that Kirsten gave me was really incredible. Like basically I did everything that she asked me to. Like she said, you should come and watch short films with our short film screeners. And I did that, and read scripts that that she thought I should take a look at, or that she wanted covered. I did a lot of data entry. I think on some level, like doing all of those kinds of menial tasks, like filing catalogs from festivals around the world, because whoever would travel someplace would bring back a catalog, or that was the days too when catalogs would be sent to offices, and just sort of becoming familiar with the festival, the global festival scene was really educational for me. But Kirsten was the one who really gave me the opportunity to program shorts. She hired me as the curator for the festival that Outfest still produces, called Fusion, which was the LA LGBT People of Color Film Festival. So I really, I feel like I kind of became a programmer through so many years of working at Outfest. And then Sundance kind of came into that shortly thereafter.
I mean, it's so great to hear you kind of describe the kind of the work of what programming means and does. I mean, it's not just showing films to audiences, or writing copy. You know, so much of it, which is one of the things that I think about a lot, is this sort of invisible work of programming. And especially when you first start, I mean, I I started working at the BFI in the sort of mid-90s, and one of the departments I worked in was BFI sales. And I think similar to you, I mean, that was my sort of film education. I hadn't studied film at university, and I felt quite insecure about that. Whereas my colleagues, had really, they'd done MAs and stuff like that. But I went through all the VHS tapes that the BFI cupboard and just started looking at all these films. And then in the BFI sales department, I was entering a lot of the BFI films into film festivals. So I would have these correspondences with film festivals around the world, filling in all the kind of the forms, and that really kind of sparked my sort of interest in kind of global festivals and what was going on in different types of specialist festivals, mainstream festivals, short festivals, documentary festivals. So I think that was really kind of informative for me as well. And I think, at the time you're not conscious of these things, are you? But then you reflect back and you think, that was actually my education, that really was.
Yeah, truly. And just, I think even reading about films that I hadn't even seen, but looking through those film catalogs, like, I think that was such, it was really enlightening. Like, I think having the sense of which films go into any given festival program was something that influenced me early on. I felt like when I first started working with Outfest, I hadn't seen half the films I wanted to see, but I had read about them, and in a way that was good enough for that moment. And then as soon as I had the opportunity to watch 500 shorts or whatever it was in order to put together a program that added another layer of me understanding kind of the range of work that was available, and what people and what filmmakers were thinking about. And I think that's one of the exciting parts about our jobs is that we use this word at Sundance a lot that's used to describe Sundance a lot is discovery. But I think that's the thing that really excites me about film programming, is that kind of notion of discovery.
Yeah, and this sort of feeling that I love is having kind of new experience, because I think everything especially in, you know, our post-pandemic lives, everything is so accessible just from one click, but just having these new experiences in the cinema. I think I hadn't really kind of encountered that before I started going to Flare. And then I remember so well, I forgot that I'd come to, you know, coming to Outfest a couple of times. And that was just, you know, for me going to Hollywood, I mean, it was crazy. And going to Outfest, it was just like the mecca of kind of LGBT. I mean, it still is, you know, the one of the most important ones. It was just thrilling. But I just, how many years did you work for Outfest, and how did you kind of hone your skills as a film programmer there? Did you, so you started off as the short film programmer, is that correct?
Yeah, I was a shorts programmer, and I think now all of a sudden it's very foggy to me. Yeah, I started as a shorts programmer at Outfest, but then I was also programming shorts at Sundance too, which kind of dovetails with my first LLGFF, or what, Flare, I guess is what
Yeah.
it's called now. My first experience there, because I think that was like right before I started programming shorts for Sundance. But yeah, I think Outfest shorts programming was great, because I listened to what the committee, short film programming committee, thought of the shorts, to kind of get a sense of how audiences react to films. And then there's this other challenge of programming and creating programs for an audience that was very specific, very demanding on some level, and just doing the work. Like Kirsten basically handing me a short film program that early in my career was really life-changing, and she, like, I kind of created, I remember one year where the first year I did it, where I kind of created programs that I thought would be good. Maybe it was like 10 programs or something. And then she watched all of those films. And then I went to her house, and we kind of had these index cards, and we were working out the programs. But just having that kind of dialogue with an experienced programmer, and doing that work together was just so much fun. And also, like, her brutally honest feedback around some of the shorts. She's like, okay, I love this program, but this film does not belong in this program. And that sort of hands-on kind of mentorship was really just so life-changing to me.
And did you have experiences, which I definitely did when I programmed Flare, of audiences kind of not being happy with some of the films that you were showing, or there was some sort of pushback about some of the framing of the films, or the discussion, or did you have that at Outfest?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think the thing, as I became more comfortable at Outfest and programming for that audience, which was an incredibly judgmental audience, is the gays were not did not hold back on how they felt about a lot of the films. One of the things I really wanted to do was to kind of expand what the idea of a queer film was. And so, like, I would include feature films with with characters that were maybe supporting characters and not the lead characters. And people get so mad about that. They're like, that's not a queer film. And I can't remember, I can, there's so many instances of that. Yeah, I've had some very funny experiences at Outfest, and some you know, so some films that I think were really tough for audiences to watch too, like ones that dealt with sexual violence. And that was kind of the first, my first encounter with audiences reacting so negatively or strongly to a program. There was a, God, I can't remember what the title of this film was. I shouldn't even have brought it up now, but there was a short film that my colleague John Korn and I, like, we put together a very edgy group of shorts for gay men, and there was one that was very upsetting to audiences. Like, I think somebody threw up watching the film, somebody else fainted and like was crawling on hands and knees out of the theater, and I was just like, oh God, what did I get myself into? But that was kind of the first indication of like of really programming for an audience, that was eye-opening for me. And then there are times when I would program like comedy shorts, it just did not work.
Yeah.
And that also was something, those were learning experiences. I feel like the only way for you to get better as a programmer is to watch the programs or films that you have curated to with an audience, and to see how audiences react to that. I thought like that was one of the most instructional parts of my career, is just sitting in theaters and hearing people laugh and react and be mad or walk out.
I mean, I so agree. I mean, I think I definitely look back at my kind of time and careers film programming, and I mean, they're not mistakes, but they're kind of missteps, I guess, that you make, and you kind of assume that this is going to particularly work, and then you show a film or a short film program, and it doesn't connect with audiences, and you're standing in the back, and you're just like. But I mean, there's a massive learning curve, and you learn from that, and you kind of think it really sharpens your skills more, because you have to take care even more, and it's difficult, when you're programming a large festival like Outfest. There's so many moving parts, and I mean, I remember, at Flare, like this big programming deadline looming, and it's difficult, isn't it, when you're kind of leading up to that deadline. You've got the copy, you've got to confirm all the films, you've got to do all the scheduling, and it's difficult to keep all the plates spinning. It's hard, but I mean, and that's a skill that you learn in itself as well, isn't it?
That's right. And people don't understand, like audiences don't understand all the work that goes into a festival. They just see the final product. And it is just so many moving parts, as you say. So.
Yeah, and I guess the higher you go up in the festival, the higher the stakes, aren't there? Because the more responsibility that you have, but always kind of keeping connected to audiences. That's what I've always tried to do with the work. And I think one of the things that I found out when I was programming Flare, that when I was showing some films that weren't working with the audience because they weren't lesbian enough, I suddenly thought, actually, I'm actually showing these films to the wrong audience. It's not, I need to find a different audience, because this audience isn't kind of receptive to the sort of films that I want to show. So I think that's why I decided to set up Club de Femme with my friend Sarah Wood, because we were like, we actually don't want to work within an institution, because we want to be a little bit more on the kind of the margins, and showing work that's a bit more kind of experimental, kind of avant-garde, not so sort of kind of mainstream, I guess. But I had to go through that process to realize what I wanted to do next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
But maybe we can bring up, Sammy. We can bring up the slide of Flare, the the year that we met in London, which I remember really well. Well, it was the London Lesbian and Gay Film Festival then. I remember meeting in in the foyer at the National Film Theatre, and I remember you telling me that you were thrilled that you'd managed to persuade your boss that you had to come to London to come to the festival. And I wanted to ask why you wanted to come to London and why the London Lesbian and Gay Film Festival. What was it about the city and the festival that you wanted to kind of be at?
I think looking at the programs for many, many years and just seeing it's such a big festival. I felt like it was kind of the equivalent to like a Frameline or an Outfest. And I think just of course, my love of London
Yeah.
was something that drew me to that festival too. At that point, I think that I actually paid for my own trip, because I think early in my programming career, I just wanted to have these experiences and didn't want to wait for anybody to really allow me to do certain things. And I felt like that was an investment in my own career. Like, of course, whatever, paying to go to London is not such a bad thing. But I think that experience of being there for the first time and really getting to know you and Brian Robinson and Campbell X, who was programming with you guys then, was it was just a great time, and just to meet people who were doing the same type of work that I was interested in doing, and just the community that forms around festivals like Flare and Outfest. I think they're really they're not just like festivals where you're going to see the work, you're going to see who else is there. and
I mean, like you said, it's like it's a kind of a community, and I remember when we did some research once at Flare where people only come, we used to call it Queer Christmas because people wouldn't go to the cinema apart from coming to Flare once a year. So it was a massive meeting point, and it's very sort of electric, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think that there's also something about the NFT and the idea that you can see a film in the big cinema and then go out into the bar and you can continue the conversation. I think that I love spaces like that. Like, I think that the other comparison is like, I don't know if you've been to Toronto, but there's the Bell Lightbox where you see a great film and then you go to the canteen and you chat about the film. I think that creating those spaces, having those spaces to actually talk, not just to go home and hang out with your cats.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just so important, isn't it? The kind of continuing the conversation outside of the cinema, and that's the social aspect, and it's just so important. I think that was so difficult for me during the pandemic, especially. I mean, we can come on to that a bit later about not having that interaction after when you come out of the cinema, daylight, or it could be evening, but what did you think, and let's go for a drink, and let's talk about it. I missed that so much. It was just, of course, going to see a film it's just wonderful and incredible, but there's the second part to it too, which is talking about it. And sometimes when you have Q&As, a lot of the time people don't want to talk in the Q&As, do it? Audiences, they don't want to say, but as soon as we finish, they're just like, can't stop talking.
Yeah, they make a beeline for you as the programmer or the filmmaker because they were too shy to bring up their question in a public place. But but yeah, I think that there's also this phenomenon that happens too at Sundance too, where all of our venues are connected by a shuttle system, and it's sort of the connections you make on the shuttle and the things that you overhear on the shuttle. It's like, oh, someone is talking about this film. I better go check that out.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the community building too.
I'm just conscious of time because it's 10 past.
Oh, time just flew.
I know, it's crazy. So I think what we're going to do now, like, let's go to Sundance.
Okay.
So there's this wonderful picture you sent us, Sammy, if you could pull up the next slide, which is, you said, my first Sundance.
Yeah, so this
I
is
just
a
love.
picture of Marcus Hu on the right and Bruce LaBruce. They were actually waiting, we were waiting for the shuttle. This was from 1995, I believe. And Bruce LaBruce was showing Super 8.5.
Mm.
And this was an actual photo that I took, as you can tell by how faded it is. But this was just, yeah, I feel like I keep saying that things were life-changing, but this was a truly life-changing moment for me. Um, I went because I was Greg Araki's assistant on the Doom Generation,
Oh
and
yeah,
that's when.
how did you, so I was going to ask about that. How did you end up becoming his assistant?
I became his assistant because I had written a paper about his early films when I was at UCLA, and one of my professors, Russell Leong, told me, like, oh, well, this is a good paper. If you interview Greg and expand this paper, I'll publish it in my journal, Amerasia Journal. And so this is like back in the day where you can just, call people, I guess. And and Greg was really just incredibly generous. And we talked, and I expanded that paper. And then I just kept kind of running into Greg around town, like at record stores, at film events, and was probably pestering him on some level. And then um, when he was about to make the Doom Generation, which was his big budget film, was, I think, probably a budget of $1 million. He said, oh, I need an assistant. And so he asked me to be his assistant. And that was my first and only production experience. I was in some ways, I thought I wanted to go into production, but that experience was enough to to steer me in another direction. Like, I needed more stability. Like, making indie films is incredibly hard, and this is the thing that I always remind myself as I'm going through submissions, is just how hard it is to get films made. But yeah, being on set with Greg was great. I just met so many incredible people on that shoot. And now the Doom Generation has been restored, and I guess the Greg's cut is the thing that's kind of doing its tour now. We just showed that at Sundance this past year, so that was
Oh, that's
a
nice.
nice kind of, yeah, it was a really nice moment. And just the idea that audiences will be able to see the film now, as Greg wanted them to see it, is fantastic.
That's very nice. So sorry I interrupted you with that picture of Bruce LaBruce and Marcus. So had you gone to Sundance with the Doom Generation? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, that was my excuse to go to Sundance for the first time. And it was really, really just so much fun, and kind of gave me the Sundance bug. And then I don't think I went to the festival until, like, maybe again until maybe 10 years later, something like that. And but that experience never really left me. Like I knew, based on the work that I had seen at the festival, that year, not only did I see the Doom Generation, but I saw a secret screening of the Larry Clark film Kids.
Oh, right.
And I saw the Todd Haynes film Safe. And you know, it was just the feeling of being there in the snow in this very special environment with people who cared about the same movies that I cared about. And that, I think that was the first time when I really realized, oh yeah, that there are people who choose the movies that go into Sundance. And that kind of just, you know, really stuck in my head for many years, even though I started doing other work, like working at UCLA and having a more or less a desk job. I really wanted to be a part of that world. And I think IndieWire was also kind of emerging in early 2000s, and that kind of gave me a window into what festivals could do for films and filmmakers. And just inspired me to be to pursue programming.
So let's move on to your next slide, which I love this. This is kind of like programming know-how, how to do it, how to program a short film at Sundance. So this is your first year of programming shorts?
It isn't. I think it might be my last year of programming shorts.
2016, yeah, that will probably sound right.
Yeah,
Your last year before you moved into features.
Yeah, maybe that's not right, but I don't know. It's all, as I said, it's a little blurry, but there were many years where I did shorts and features, because there's always one features programmer who kind of helps with oversee the shorts programming. And this is, I love the Post-it. The Post-it just, like, there's just so much on one Post-it itself. Like, I think we have it divided into US and international. The blue must be US. And then there's like a little speck of green Post-it. Probably that's a female filmmaker.
Okay.
So these are all kind of the things that the factors that go into programming shorts, and then the runtime at the bottom with the time scratched out many times, because you move one film to another program and then have to readjust the time. And this is just a nice visual for kind of the shorts programming process. I mean, now at Sundance we get 11,000 shorts submitted to us, and we program 65 around. So it's nearly impossible to get into the festival. But at this point of the process, this is kind of the photographs we take to make sure nobody switches any Post-its until we come in the next day and we're all
really?
And then yeah, it's sort of to just document the end of the day work. Yeah.
So I mean, now I know you're not programming shorts, but I mean, again, I remember sort of, it's just the physical, the pieces of paper that you're moving around, handwriting, getting on the telephone, receiving prints. I mean, it's obviously it's a whole different landscape now. I mean, how do your short film programmers program now at Sundance? I mean, are they still with Post-it notes, or is it all moved?
Oh yeah,
You still have that working method?
Yeah, I think the Post-it method comes in at the last, I would say, 5 days of programming, because right now the shorts team is kind of spread out around the country, and so but they all meet, and I come in towards the end, and they try to help them work through some problems and come in with fresh eyes and look at the programs too, and lend what I can. And I do think that experience as a programmer, that kind of experience, like, what am I trying to say exactly? I think the longer you do the job, the better you are at it. And so even though I'm a little bit rusty on my shorts programming, I still love it so much. I think that after we lock our feature film program, I get to watch the shorts, and the shorts that are in heavy contention for the festival. And then and it's such a relief to watch shorts after that. It's just, I think it's such an exciting part of being a programmer, and it feels very creative, and to work with a team, and to create those programs, and to kind of figure out what the ebbs and flows of a program is one of the most gratifying parts of the work we do.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you're putting a short film program together, it's almost like choreography, isn't it? Because there's this again, and that comes with experience. When you, I mean, we programmed a short film program in January, and it just worked, you know, and it was just the most amazing feeling when you don't know if it's going to work, but it just connects with the audience, and people just loved it. And there's something about short film programming that's different, like you said, from features, that there's something immediate, and it's just, you've got all these different elements and different voices and people, you know, coming from all parts of the world and kind of different points of view. And if it works, it's just electric.
Yeah, and the challenge of putting them all together and figuring out how they speak to each other, I think is really just so much fun. Hello, Catherine.
Hi, sorry. I hate to interrupt because it's
we haven't got through half our discussion.
I know, we need to rebook. We need to bring you back, Kim. We bring back the best ones, and then you have like part 2, and then you have part 3. And
Perfect. My only request is that we do it in person.
that would be lovely. Let's do it in person. So we're missing your last slide, but maybe we did have one question. So if you have questions, would you put them in a chat now, or so in some you can send them to me. So we did have a question that was, what advice would you give to someone who is starting out as a filmmaker? And I guess that's in your kind of Sundance type role.
As a filmmaker?
Yeah.
I think it's really important to not wait for anybody to tell you when to make a film and what to make a film about. Like, I think it's really important to find your own voice as a filmmaker, and the only way to do that is to create work. So I am a big proponent of just like telling people to make short films. That fueled a lot of our conversation today. And even feature filmmakers between projects, like I have a lot of friends who are waiting for the next project to be made. Just go out and do something fun. And I think it's such a great way to it's almost like staying in shape, you know. And so that is my recommendation. And also just to not worry about what external forces are telling you about the types of stories you should tell. Your individual voice as a filmmaker is what is most important, and that's what we look for as programmers, and so we want to see the story that you have to tell, and what makes it unique, what makes it special.
That's really lovely answer. Everybody's very shy and we don't have lots of questions, and I want you to talk about your last slide, Selina.
Oh yeah, we can just talk.
Well, our last slide is sort of that's a ruby, isn't it?
No,
It's
it's
the
there. It's Ruby, and
Yes.
we've also missed the broshure maybe for the.
No, we showed the brochure.
Oh, you showed the brochure. Oh, sorry.
That was at the very beginning.
Okay.
No, the
Yeah.
last slide was Ruby, and I guess that Be Ruby Rich, who's for those who don't know, she's an incredible film programmer, curator, theorist, funder, activist, and she's been part of Sundance for Kim, how many years? Decades.
Decades. I mean, I
30 decades. 3 decades.
I would say so. I mean, I think that her article, that seminal article that she wrote about New Queer Cinema, was such an influential, piece of work for me. I imagine for you too, Selina. I don't know. When did you first meet Ruby?
Well, not that long ago. I mean, in 2016, when she came to London, when we curated this program with her at the Barbican, Being Ruby Rich. That was the first time that I'd met her in person. I was like really in awe of meeting her. But then obviously I've read her book and chick flicks, and then New Queer Cinema, but it's also just her writing about programming and her focus on exhibition and audiences and film festivals, and that was always putting audiences first. It was really instructive for me, and her whole idea of socially informed film curating, programming, and the sort of the flow between the connection between production, film criticism, film programming, and distribution, exhibition. They're all kind of it all works together. It was very important for me, informing me as a film programmer myself.
And we've got loads of. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say we've got a couple more questions.
Oh, okay. All right.
I didn't want to interrupt you. Sorry. So the first one is, maybe I'm going to try and get these two in before we have to finish. So, hi Kim, would you advise a new programmer to set up and program their own film club or a mini festival, for instance?
Would I advise that? Yes. I think it's important for whatever interests you have and whatever kind of work that you find important, to however you can help bring that work to audiences. It's sort of like it's just however you can do that. I think that is the opportunity you should seize. I also think that working for festivals, just putting yourself out there, seeing what kind of work exists, I think is such that is also an important thing to develop your voice as a programmer too. And I do not regret any volunteer hours that I that I put in to Outfest, or I also worked for an Asian American festival as a volunteer in LA. Just whatever opportunities you have to watch films that are coming out and seeing what the landscape is and trying to make sense of it, I think is really important as you develop your skills as a curator and programmer.
We've got a flurry of questions now. You've kind of answered maybe the last one, which is about advice to give to a young person or graduate trying to get into film programming and curating, which I guess is like watch everything. Really, essentially,
watch it and put yourself out there. I also think that the more people you meet at festivals helps you, because it's almost like you're trying to find, like, it in a way we're a very small community, and so it's hard to actually once you meet people, then you're kind of in, I think. And once you get people to kind of understand what you are interested in, what your strengths are as a programmer, then that's when you get more jobs too. People will start to trust you. And if you kind of fit in with a group of programmers, it's like putting together a band in a way. That's how I would see my job as director of programming now. It's like having the right people in the room. And the only way that I know that a programmer might be good is by working with them and hearing them talk about films and hearing them express what their passions are.
Oh, that's such a nice such a nice answer. Maybe we have time for this last one. If you're going to curate a new program, or when you leading a film festival, what are the things that you take into consideration when you embark on something new?
Embark on something new. I mean, I think that each year we put together a program. As we approach the work, I think that the most important thing is to have an open mind. Like, as soon as I start thinking about what I want a film to be, I'm disappointed. Or maybe I am surprised, but I don't think that that's the right attitude to come to the process with. I feel like just being open and trusting the people that you work with is that is key to what I do. Like, I find that the longer I do this job, the less I am attached to what Kim Yutani likes as a film, as a cinephile. And that's why I listen to the people that I work with, and I listen to the things that they are responding to. Like, I almost find that the less there is of yourself in, and I'm talking specifically around a big festival program like Sundance, the less attached I am to films, the better the program is. Like, does that make sense? I'm not sure if I'm being
that I was going to say I would agree with
you.
you. I mean, absolutely. I think, well, myself and Selina, we've both been, like, obviously we all started very young, but we've been programming a lot of years, and I would absolutely agree with that. The more you do it, the less what you think, the less that's not so interesting. That's not, it's not really about what you like. You obviously have the things that you are interested in, but it's that curiosity, isn't it? It's not really about you. It can never be about you, because if it's about you, then it's boring, and you could just do it in your front room. And why would anyone else why would an audience be interested? But
that's right.
Yeah, but it's a great answer. I think we're out of time. I'm sorry, we get all really stern. I'm following your lead, Selina. You were always very stern about finishing.
Well, I was going to ask her for a big statement about Sundance and the post-pandemic moment, but maybe we'll just have to come back and say it another time. I mean,
I think that's a great way to leave things. Leave them wanting more. Invite me to London. I'm always ready to get on the plane. And we can talk about it then.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about there, but I think that's probably best.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much for joining us, Kim and Selina. I feel like we've been eavesdropping on like a really lovely conversation, and it's so nice to hear. And so, like, all of the texture and the depth has just been like wonderful. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you everybody for listening, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Kim. Bye.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Selina.
Kim. Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
Catherine. Thanks, ICO.